Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Garth Williams. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is calling for economic and structural reform to help both CARICOM and BRICS nations grow and develop. He says a number of the issues facing CARICOM states are the same problems hindering the growth of other countries from the south. Prime Minister Holness made a historic address at the BRICS Plus Summit in South Africa today. Javon Keys has more.
There are no forces with greater capacity to transform the lives of millions from poverty to prosperity than the forces of inclusive and sustainable economic growth.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness as he addressed the BRICS Bloc's summit on securing sustainable and inclusive growth for the prosperity of the global south. Mr. Holness noted that many of these issues being faced by countries in the south are the same being faced by CARICOM states. However, they have made progress and are now positioned for growth.
There are some of the issues that occupy the attention of the 15 small states that comprise the CARICOM community. We recognize that some of these same issues plague our countries of the South, hindering the pace at which our people can attain prosperity. Jamaica and other Caribbean countries have made substantial progress in implementing painful but necessary structural reforms which have delivered macroeconomic stability and now have us poised for growth.
He said an important part of delivering prosperity to the people of all these countries is through the strengthening of national efforts with bilateral and multilateral partnerships. He added that multiple efforts must be taken to counter the challenges being faced.
We must confront the common challenges on multiple fronts. First, we must enhance productivity. In Jamaica, we are using our limited resources more efficiently. We are seeking to improve the capacity of small farmers to move up the value chain. We are supporting MSMEs to ensure they can participate in the formal economy through access to credit and institutional support. Importantly, we are building out our ICT infrastructure and embracing and integrating technology for smarter and more efficient public administration.
He said increased trade is also very crucial.
We must engage in trade. For small economies, it is an essential path to growth and development. However, even as we are working domestically to support increased trade and investment, we, like many of you, note developments in the international trade with great concern. Because of our size, small economies absolutely require a rules-based multilateral trading system to ensure transparency and predictability.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness also pointed out that climate change and disaster resilience is a major concern for these states. There is also the need to ensure social protection, especially for vulnerable groups. That is why he is calling for the large, more developed countries to support smaller states in these efforts. The BRICS nations refer to the economic grouping of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. For BATV News, I'm Javon Keys.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness wants the Caribbean and South Africa to foster a better relationship. This, he argues, would yield greater economic benefits for both territories. Prime Minister Holness made the call while speaking at a town hall meeting in South Africa yesterday. Sashana Small has more.
Prime Minister Holness says the BRICS countries should not only look to the Caribbean as a place where they give aid, but should also view it as an arena for investment.
Because you more understand the issues that face us and would probably have a greater sympathetic ear towards supporting the development of small economies. But it is not just on the basis of charity and conscience. I think as well that there are economic opportunities, real economic opportunities that both the Caribbean countries and BRICS countries can exploit.
He points out that tourism is an area that South Africa can invest in.
For example, tourism. The Caribbean has probably one of the world's most advanced tourism products. But we are not at the stage where we could say that we have fully maximized our potential. There is significant potential for investments in hotels and attractions. And we have major interests coming from the Spanish, from the Europeans who keep investing. We would love to have South Africans coming and investing in the Caribbean region. Jamaica in particular, of course. No offense to my... And we would love to have more visitors from South Africa.
He says the relationship between the Caribbean and South Africa should be deepened to allow hassle-free travel.
We need to build on that relationship where we already have people-to-people contact to now have business-to-business contact. So simple thing like airlift agreements. That needs to be done so that South Africans can move quickly to the Caribbean in ease and comfort, and Caribbean people can move to South Africa in ease and comfort, whether it is for tourism or for business.
In the meantime, Prime Minister Holness says South Africa and Jamaica can share expertise as both countries continue research to the cannabis industry.
So Jamaica has to move very quickly, as other countries in the Caribbean are doing, to set up a framework to be able to exploit the medicinal value of the product, cannabis. And that is an area in which I'm certain we can have greater cooperation in terms of technical and research areas.
For BATV News, I'm Shoshana Small.
Financial inclusion for all. That has been the mandate of the National Financial Inclusion Council, NFIC, which is chaired by the Finance Minister, Dr. Nigel Clark. He's also calling on micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs, to take advantage of the opportunities offered by the Council to expand and develop their businesses. The Finance Minister was speaking at the NFIC's second annual general meeting held in Kingston this morning. Jamila Maitland reports.
As we continue to implement policies and programs and strengthen institutions in pursuit of economic opportunity for all, we must ensure that every single Jamaican, every single man, every single woman, every single young adult, rural or urban, uptown or downtown, has the opportunity to pursue his or her own financial path.
But even though the Bank of Jamaica has slashed interest rates to as low as 2% and inflation has dropped to some 2.8%, MSMEs say they are not reaping the benefits. One representative questioned how the council will convince the banks to lend them money at low interest rates if many institutions aren't even interested in lending them at all.
How are you going to convince the bankers to lend those persons that the inanimated thing point out? I'm still taking that. How are you going to convince them to lend at a rate that is consistent with all these hyperboles that you are presenting? When they lend, I am not asking, I'm telling you, at 38% from an institution that I borrow $100,000 from, and 28% from another that I borrowed a small loan from. How are you going to convince them that they are to lend the customer or the client at a rate that they can run their business to pay them back at a...
But the Central Bank Governor Brian Winter explained that there are some financial institutions which do offer low interest rates, and that is why MSME should shop around for the best one.
That we need to, as consumers, exploit the benefits of competition. There are more than, you have indicated in your remarks that there were two institutions with widely different interest rates, albeit both of them were, much too high. There are more than those two. There are many institutions, and so we would like to use the opportunity now, but also as we go forward, we have to reach Jamaicans and enable them to get the benefits of competition.
But representatives weren't reassured with relying on the morale of banks, arguing that government policies are needed to protect them. That is why Minister of Finance Dr. Nigel Clark says he's working on policies to address any form of irrational interest rate policies from banks that makes financial inclusion difficult for the MSMEs. For BATV News, I'm Jamila Maitland.
And when we return, Mike Henry pushes for £200 billion in reparation money from Britain. This and more after the break. Welcome back. Reparations advocate and minister without portfolio in the office of the Prime Minister, Mike Henry, says he has sent letters to the Attorney General, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and the Minister of Culture, asking them to meet with him to discuss Jamaica's reparations cause. Minister Henry was a guest on BATV's business discussion program On Point last evening, and Shoshana Small tells us more.
Our leaders must pick off their blinkers and begin to realize what is important.
Minister Henry says the government has not openly given its support for the fight for reparations, but he's hopeful they will soon join him.
It started from the debate that CARICOM should join in terms of taking this matter further. There's a 10-point plan being done by the National Reparations Committee that exists in different countries, because that has been demanded in the international discussion that relates to this overall, right? The basic point is, yes, I said join, that's why I'm taking this to discuss it with my colleague ministers, and the government has not rejected not joining me.
They haven't accepted it, though.
Huh?
They haven't accepted it.
No, they haven't accepted yet.
Right. He says the reparations claim that he's taking to the Privy Council will demand that Britain pays approximately £200 billion to Jamaica.
What I'm exactly asking for is exactly what was paid to the slave owners by the British government.
The 20
million pounds.
At today's value.
At today's value.
So 200 billion.
And whatever else must flow from that, right? Flows from the following the arguments about crimes against humanity. But the 20 million pounds must be paid to the state of Jamaica so that the slaves can benefit equally from what the slave owners.
He says the reparations claim will not only have to be paid in cash.
It can be all of many things. It can be transfer of technology, it can be economic investments overall, because I don't think anyone in the Treasury of Britain doesn't have that to pay right now.
And if he wins this case, who will manage the money?
That's something you can go to the people for decisions on. You can vote on all of that in relation to it overall. Just don't stop me in taking the step to be able to get the funds first. And you can, as I said anyway,
what do you think
part of it is for repatriation.
What do you think should happen with it, if we get it?
I said it must be paid to the government. And the government must be answerable to the people as it does every 5 years.
For BATV News, I'm Shoshana Small.
An increase in the index for bauxite mining and alumina processing caused the Producer Price Index PPI for the mining and quarrying industry to increase during the month of June. The latest PPI numbers were released by the Statistical Institute of Jamaica, Statin, yesterday. Jamila Maitland has the details.
The Statin figures showed that the Producer Price Index PPI for the mining and quarrying industry increased by 0.7% in June 2018. This was as a result of an increase in the index for the major group bauxite mining and alumina processing, which increased by a similar 0.7%. Meanwhile, the index for the manufacturing industry recorded an increase of 0.6% for June 2018. This increase was attributable to a 3.9% increase for the index for the major group refined petroleum products. There was, however, a downward movement in the index for the highest weighted major group food, beverages and tobacco, which fell by 0.3%. In the meantime, there was a 9.7% decline in the point-to-point movement in the index for the mining and quarrying industry for June 2017 to June 2018. Conversely, the manufacturing industry advanced by 7.3% in its index for the corresponding period. This movement was mainly due to increases in the major group's refined petroleum products, which stood at 33.5%, and food, beverages and tobacco, which stood at 1.8%. For the fiscal year to date, that is April to June 2018, the index for the mining and quarrying industry recorded a decline of 1.1%, while the index for the manufacturing industry rose by 2.3%. For BATV News, I'm Jamila Maitland.
Illegal cigarettes on the Jamaican market are cheating the government out of millions of dollars in tax revenue annually. The Carreras Group, which is also losing money to the illicit trade, is hoping that greater steps will be taken to clamp down on it. The Carreras Group, which is Jamaica's leading distributor of cigarettes, recently hosted a conference on the illicit trade. Here's more.
The conference saw a number of stakeholders, including members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, coming together to share ideas about how to stamp out the illicit trade. Managing Director of Carreras Limited, Marcus Steele, while welcoming the conference, said it's very relevant but long overdue.
I believe you will all agree that this is a timely conference, one which should have happened long time ago, because there is no doubt that urgent action is required where the phenomenon of illicit trade, which we are all gathered here to discuss, is concerned.
He noted that the illicit trade is becoming a major problem as the police continue to seize massive amounts of illegal goods.
The illicit trade is getting bigger and bolder, and I dare say more challenging, right in line with the scourge of crime here in Jamaica. The flow of illicit cigarettes into the island is mind-boggling for me and for many others. You will recall just recently, over the past 2 months, the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Branch, CTOC of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, seized more than $500 million worth of illegal cigarettes.
This, he said, leaves a large sum of money slipping through the government's coffers.
We at Carreras continue to highlight that the government is being robbed of approximately $5 billion in revenue per year. And let me repeat, $5 billion because of the illicit trade.
He's therefore calling for the implementation of more stringent enforcement measures and more robust border control to regulate the trade of tobacco goods. In the meantime, National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang said that the illicit trade plays a major role in the funding of organized crime.
At the Ministry of National Security, we have a particular interest in illicit trade because it is without any question or doubt and without any fear of contradiction, I can say, illicit trade. Whether it's cigarettes, lotto scamming, which is financial trade, or guns, ganja, or coke transshipment is what fund the organized criminal networks in Jamaica. Organized transnational criminality, which has become a major problem for this country. Until we can deal with it effectively, we will not achieve the level of growth in the economy that is required.
For BATV News, I'm Javon Keys.
Regional and international stories are up next. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time now for regional and international news. Barbados' newest telecommunications provider is sending home 80% of its workforce and will suspend all debt payments in a bid to survive a multi-million-dollar debt. The one-year-old Ozone Wireless says it owes US $4 million to over 50 creditors and would therefore undertake a 3-year debt reprofiling program. Ozone Wireless's new head, Dr. Nicholas Kelly, says the company has frozen all debt payments until January 2019 and will reduce its staff complement from 60 to 12 employees. In addition, its Manor Lodge office will be closed effective August 3. He notes that while Ozone Wireless will maintain its voice over LTE service, its primary focus will now be on data provision. A public spat is brewing between the governments of the Bahamas and Haiti over efforts by the authorities in the Bahamas to remove Haitians living in shanty towns. More from Bahamas' Eyewitness News.
We thought that the injection of the emissary from Haiti was irregular. It's not normal for foreign emissaries to inject themselves into the domestic policy decisions of governments of a country. And secondly, we thought that if there was something to be said by foreign countries, it should firstly be said to Foreign Affairs, before we see public pronouncements.
Henfield drawing the line in the sand, stating that pronouncements made by the Haitian embassy representative were out of line and prompted an immediate meeting for explanation.
We instructed that he come to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and explain. There was a visit yesterday by the chargé from the Haitian embassy. I think there's a return visit scheduled for today, and we're monitoring to see how the meetings go and to see what the outcome will be.
In an interview that appeared on ZNS, First Secretary for the Embassy, Carl Henry Chantelier, presented recommendations that government should consider in a last-ditch attempt to prevent shantytown residents from being evicted.
They want to purchase, or if the governor want to lease them to. If they can have like I can say, the accord, if they can have something that can allow them to stay on the land and do something legally, okay, and they can pay every month and they will rebuild the shantytown. They are willing to rebuild the shantytown with their own possibilities, and they will respect all the requirements, like allow the electricity, waters, everything, and give another face to the shantytown.
Now, the Foreign Affairs Minister said although those comments made by representatives from the Haitian embassy were gravely concerning, he says government won't be discouraged in enforcing the rules and regularizing those communities.
In all fairness, I think what our policy initiative is to cause there to be no more irregular communities in the Bahamas. We would like to see a fully integrated Bahamian society and communities. I think the concerns are that some people might be displaced, but these irregular communities are considered hazardous. There are no condition for people to be living in a country such as the Bahamas, and we seek to remove them.
Facebook's stock has taken a nosedive, wiping out about $120 billion in market value. The plunge comes after earnings fell short of expectations following a series of scandals. Al Jazeera's Kristen Salome reports from New York.
For Facebook, which has experienced exponential growth since its initial public offering in 2012, it was an uncharacteristic plunge in market value after an uncharacteristically bad quarterly report. On Thursday, share prices tumbled. Sure, profits were up 31% over last year, but for the first time since 2015, they fell short of expectations.
To some extent, this correction was expected. I think the smart money had expected this. And when you're priced for perfection, there's no margin of error.
A series of scandals seem to be catching up to the social media company. Founder Mark Zuckerberg was called to account by Congress over Russia's use of the platform to try to influence the 2016 election.
We didn't take a broad enough view of our responsibility, and that was a big mistake. And it was my mistake, and I'm sorry.
And the harvesting of user data through the political consulting firm Cambridge Analytica. The company says increases in security spending are likely to continue eating into profits. And tougher user protection laws in Europe have already cost the company some 3 million users.
There's some structural issues right now, and they need to really work that out. It's going to take some time, but at the end of the day, at the very end of the day, Facebook is a good company.
Facebook remains one of the most valuable publicly traded companies heading into the 2018 midterm elections when its new security protocols will be put to the test. Mark Zuckerberg is attempting to reassure investors, saying that this time he's confident the social media company will get it right. Kristen Salumi, Al Jazeera, New York.
Stay with us. Talking Stocks is next. Welcome back. It's now time for Talking Stocks. 53 stocks traded today, of which 22 advanced, 24 declined, and 7 traded firm. The main JC index advanced by 1,500 points to close at over 310,000. The junior index advanced by 6 points to close at 3,093. Over 6.7 million units traded, valued at over $163 million on the Jamaican dollar market, while on the US dollar market, a little over 500,000 units traded, valued at more than 50,000 US dollars. Carreras Limited, with a little over 1.4 million units trading, accounted for 20% of market volume. Grace Kennedy, with more than 1 million units trading hands, was second, while NCB Financial Group, with over 500,000 units trading, accounted for 8% of market volume. Siboney was the top advancer, up 2 cents to close at 13 cents, followed by Fosrich, which was up 45 cents to close at $2.96, and Stationery and Office Supplies up 45 cents to close at $8.45. The main decliners were medical disposables and supplies, ordinary shares down 49 cents to close at $5.51, followed by Cygnus Credit Investments, US dollar ordinary shares down 1 cent to close at 10 cents, and the separate group down $1.99 to close at $32.01. And that's the news for this evening, but before we go, a recap of our top story. Prime Minister Andrew Holness is calling for economic and structural reform to help both CARICOM and BRICS nations grow and develop. The Prime Minister made the call during his historic address at the BRICS Plus Summit in South Africa today. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website, batvja.com. I'm Garth Williams. Pleasant viewing.